Sexual harassment. It's a term many had never really heard of before '91 when Anita Hill made harassment claims against now Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. But 2017 may well be the year we look back on when we finally turned a corner and really began to at least attempt to stamp out the problem as well as the accused. Now, the poster child may well be this man, Harvey Weinstein, the Hollywood producer, Democratic donor. He's been essentially ostracized from show business, and he paved the way for other victims to come forward, accusing other power players in Hollywood and beyond. Weinstein's fall came months after Fox News fired Bill O'Reilly after claims that he had also sexually harassed a number of women. And this weekend came word that the accusations and the payouts from Fox were even larger than first believed. The Times reporting this weekend on previously unknown details about the accusations against O'Reilly and how much Fox paid out to his alleged victims and to him. Quote, last January, they write, 6 months after Fox News ousted its chairman amid sexual harassment scandal Roger Ailes, the network's top-rated host at the time, Bill O'Reilly, struck a $32 million agreement with a longtime network analyst to settle new sexual harassment allegations for a single claim. They included allegations of repeated harassment, non-consensual sexual relationship, and the sending of gay pornography and other sexually explicit material to her, that according to people briefed on the matter. It was at least the 6th agreement and by far the largest made by either Mr. O'Reilly or the company to settle harassment allegations against him. Despite that record, and despite it coming on the heels of Roger Ailes, 21st Century Fox began contract negotiations with Mr. O'Reilly and in February granted him a 4-year extension that paid $25 million a year, $100 million all in. And keep in mind, again, all this happened 6 months after Fox ousted Roger Ailes, the late Roger Ailes, the network president, also amid charges of sexual harassment. O'Reilly, for his part, called the Times piece a smear article, but a former co-worker of his responded. This is Gretchen Carlson here, whose harassment claims led to the firing of Ailes. She replied to O'Reilly by posting, "Nobody pays $32 million for false allegations. Nobody." Harassment allegations are bad enough, as it also appears to have been a corporate culture at Fox that both allowed and facilitated sexual harassment. But Fox also appears to be guilty of rank hypocrisy on the issue, turning the Weinstein story into a cudgel to hammer political opponents and the network's critics while overlooking the same allegations under their own roof.
Many powerful people knew what Harvey Weinstein was doing and not only ignored his crimes, but actively took his side against his many victims. It's a long list, but at the very top of that list is NBC News.
Pot, meat, kettle. Okay, Jeannie, let's take this beyond even Fox News. And by the way, I should mention Megyn Kelly today in our program. She spoke directly about this issue and directly about being harassed directly by Bill O'Reilly. One of the reasons why she left there, and she had on Liz Weil, who's the person who brought the suit against O'Reilly. There's confidentiality agreements in place and all that. But I read an article in the Times Magazine this weekend about Uber and the culture there and the whistleblower that led to really the changes, certainly in management. We're hearing claims also that go well beyond politics or even entertainment or, as I said, Silicon Valley. Are we at a turning point here, or are you afraid that these are one-offs and in 3-4 months it'll still be boys' clubs at a lot of places in this country?
I mean, you hope we're at a turning point. And I read the same article on Uber, which was fascinating for anybody who hasn't had a chance to read it this weekend in the New York Times. Absolutely fascinating about this woman who came forward as the quote-unquote whistleblower. But I think, you know, my concern is that a lot of the focus in the media, understandably so, have been these big payouts to big name people who we all recognize and know. And the truth is, harassment happens at all levels. And is there going to be this level of interest in harassment that happens you know, against and by people who are not well known, who are not taught, you know, don't make, you know, $200 million a year or $10 million a year or even $100,000 a year or 50, but who are harassing nevertheless. And those are the stories I don't think that we in the media or elsewhere have talked about or covered, because harassment is not just about wealthy people against wealthy people, good-looking people against good-looking people. It happens in all levels, at all stages, against women of all types, and quite frankly, against men. We can't forget that as well. So that's my concern, that the focus has been so much on Hollywood and these big names that we know in the news media in Hollywood, that the harassment that's happening at other levels, and I mentioned against men as well, is undercovered at this point, and maybe that's something we'll see hopefully in the future.
I was thinking, because I knew you were going to be on, and I'm not trying to bring this to any particular school or anything, but in your world, if an adjunct professor wants to be a professor, or a professor's coming up for tenure and all the rest, department heads leaning, I mean, just as a small example, will that be taboo now? Because, well, look what happened. You know, you can't do that because the whole college could be basically put on notice, or a major lawsuit will happen. Do you think people, women who have something to lose by coming forward, will more readily take the chance to say, even at professional risk potentially, I'm going to make this public, I'm going to bring a case?
We hope so, and let's not forget, and I'm so glad you brought it up, the laws have changed about women in colleges, and I'm talking about students, not necessarily faculty or administrators, reporting, and to make that reporting easier and not to hide it. I mean, we've seen the big cases at Columbia and everywhere else. So these laws are changing, and of course, we've seen a lot of challenges about harassment at the student-faculty level, and faculty versus faculty admin. And my point is, it happens in every type of business, in every profession, and we can't just pretend that it's only happening in the news media or in Hollywood, that it's some glamorous thing that just happens there, and forget everybody who works in, whether it's in, selling clothes, or whether it's in a college, or whether it's in a school, or any other types of business. This is happening all over, and it's got to come out of the shadows.
Example, because that adjunct professor who you hypothetically mentioned may not have the financial standing to be able to risk losing their job, might not be able to have the financial standing to put forward an actual lawsuit and pay the costs
if you make trouble,
for that.
Will another college
hire you, or are you basically threatening the end of your own career by coming forward on that? It's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out, particularly for accusers of lower means.
And to your point, the charges against somebody who can pay out big are going to be different than the charges against a professor who can't pay out big. I mean, you can get a big settlement out of somebody who, Hollywood superstar like Harvey Weinstein. You can't get a big payout out of, a manager at a local restaurant or something like that. And so, they don't have the incentives, to your point, and they don't have the funding to hire the attorney and all of those things.
That's when you hope that the exposure of such a tragic incident would give people the courage to come out there, regardless.
I used to think it was more of a generational thing. It was guys 20 years old and us 30, that it was a different age, I heard this weekend a lot of guys, many of them in the financial sector, saying in so many words, you know what, people got to grow a little tougher skin. It's been going on forever, kind of like Mad Men in 2017.
As the father of two daughters, I disagree with that.
Me too. But I'm just saying, I think it's
ridiculous.
more out there than we even want to acknowledge.
It is.
What guys think's okay still. All right. Let's hope I'm wrong. All right, coming up next, almost 55 years after the assassination of JFK, a trove of documents connected to that investigation are set for release. So why do Americans love conspiracy theories so much? And what is it about the murder of the former president that has so many still asking so many questions to this day?